stepmom caused my twin's death, moved on without guilt, and now expects me to welcome her baby into my sister's space. I, 17F, had an identical twin sister. We were inseparable and did everything together. She was honestly my best friend. Last year in September, my stepmom had to pick us up from a volleyball game. Our dad usually picked us up, but he was out of town. She was an hour late because she forgot about us. Well, on the way home, she kept ranting about how we disturbed her nap. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I haven't forgiven my stepmom. She refuses to acknowledge that she was in the wrong. Even though there were eyewitnesses present, she refuses to accept responsibility for causing the accident. I'm not an angry person. I'm a very calm and not confrontational at all. But I can't even look at her without feeling like she stole from me. She stole my sister's life away. And she acts like my sister never existed to begin with. One thing that really struck a nerve was when I was out at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We had to buy something for my younger brother and they started a conversation with an old man. I can't remember exactly what they were talking about, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom corrected him by saying, "Number 3. That just made me really sad. I didn't speak to her the rest of the day. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything because we experienced life together. Now, I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I often dream about her, but when I wake up and reality hits, it absolutely crushes me. Living is unbearable without my sister. Please ignore any spelling errors." For some background, my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmom. They ultimately got divorced, which was really hard on our family. My mom ended up moving back to her home country in Europe. My twin sister and I had to stay with our dad. I, 17F, live with my dad, my stepmom and my younger brothers. Last year in September, my twin sister and I had a volleyball game at school. My dad was usually the one who picked us up from our games and practices, but he couldn't that night. My dad was out of town, so our stepmom had to come pick us up. She arrived an hour late because she took a nap and forgot about us. As soon as we got in the car, she started going on a rant about how we disturbed her nap. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything because we experienced life together. Now, I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I'm not suicidal, but I often imagine/think about ending my own life because living is unbearable without my sister. Well, last night, my stepmom made a special dinner for her birthday. After the accident, I stopped eating dinner with the rest of my family. It just feels wrong eating without my sister at the table, so I eat alone in my room. Well, my dad insisted I eat with them downstairs. I protested, but he begged me. Dinner started off normally. My stepmom announced to my brothers, 8M, 5M, and I that she was pregnant. My brothers were really happy and asked for the gender of the baby. My stepmom excitedly said that it was a girl. My brothers kept talking about they were excited about getting a younger sister. My stepmom mentioned how they could help decorate her nursery. I looked up and asked her, which room would be the nursery. She excitedly said that she was going to use my twin sister's room. She mentioned how she already started removing things from her room in the morning and putting them in the attic. I asked her why she didn't bother telling me before she went ahead and started moving my sister's stuff. It was a big deal to me because aside from me, no one has been in her room since she's passed. Sometimes when I miss her, I sit in her room to feel closer to her. And some nights, I fall asleep in her room. My stepmom got really defensive. She said that I needed to accept that she was having a baby and needed the empty room. I told her that I understood that she was pregnant, but a heads up would have been nice before she started removing things from my sister's room. She looked at me and said that she didn't need to tell me anything because she was the mother of the household. She said she was doing what was best for the interest of her baby and she didn't need my negativity. I stayed silent trying to tune her out, but I snapped when she mentioned how I needed to accept my sister's death and move on. She said something along the lines of, "Your twin passed away and you need to accept that. It's hard, but you've got your father, your brothers and I. Plus, you're getting a new sister who you can build an even stronger relationship with. You need to move on because nothing will bring, twin sister, back." I knew I was getting angry, so I excused myself and left the table. My dad started yelling about how I was being dramatic and I needed to come back or I'd be grounded. I continued walking away, until my stepmom said, "I don't understand what her problem is. She couldn't even bother to be happy about my pregnancy, but she's angry about me moving things out of an unoccupied bedroom." I turned around and stared at her in disbelief. My stepmom often acts like twin sister never existed. An example, 2 months ago, I was at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We were buying a birthday present for my younger brother and they got into a conversation with an older man. I wasn't paying much attention, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom responded saying, "Number 3. She does stuff like that all the time, which drives me insane." I started going off on her and she sat there quietly. I mentioned how she's been the cause of every major traumatic event in my life. I reminded her that she knowingly started sleeping with a married man. She knew he had a wife and kids, but she didn't care. She broke up my family, sending my mom into a deep depression which ultimately led her to move away. Then I reminded her that she was too preoccupied with ranting about how we disturbed her nap, which ultimately led to a car accident that had me hospitalized for weeks. And I lost my twin sister because of her carelessness. I told her that she had no right to just take things out of my sister's room. And I wasn't angry about her new baby, but the fact that she started boxing and removing stuff from my sister's room without even telling me in advance. Then finally I told her that it was cruel of her to tell me to move on from the traumatic death of my twin sister. She argued back that the accident happened and I was living in the past. She said everything happens for a reason and God works in mysterious ways. I straight up asked her if she thought that my sister's death could not have been avoided. And she responded saying, "It was just unlucky fate." I reminded her that my sister would be alive if she wasn't distracted. My stepmom then told me that I make her feel like I wanted her to die instead. I just stayed silent and she kept asking me if she was correct. I turned to walk away and my stepmom grabbed my arm. I asked her to let go and she kept saying, "You want me dead, don't you?" I stayed silent again, but she kept repeating it. I eventually got mad and truthfully told her that my life would have been easier that way. She started crying and my dad called me heartless. I did apologize a few minutes later, but my dad snapped and asked me to leave my stepmom alone. Since then, my dad has been giving me the silent treatment while my stepmom just avoids me. Ada? Update 1. I wasn't able to read most of the responses to my last post because I went to sleep after posting it. When I woke up, there were several viral TikTok videos about my situation. I didn't know about any of that, but my stepmom's younger sister saw one of the Reddit videos and sent it to their family group chat. And my stepmom saw the video, and lost it when she read the comments. She took my phone, laptop, and grounded me right after I woke up. When my dad got home from work, he backed her up. Her entire family was furious, and my dad got yelled at by her parents. And they tried to force me to take the post down, but I wouldn't give them my phone's password, so there's little they could do about that. They kept calling me insensitive and disrespectful for bringing strangers into a private matter. As a part of my punishment, I wasn't allowed to leave my room. They wouldn't allow me to use my phone or laptop to communicate with my mom at all. They said I could get those privileges back after they deemed that I learned my lesson. A week after everything, my stepmom lost her baby, and she blamed me for it. She said I was causing the entire family too much stress. She just kept yelling at me that I did this to her and she refused to even glance in my direction. She had a huge argument with my dad about how she wanted me gone. She ended up staying with her parents for the night. And my stepmom even tried to turn my younger brothers against me, and it worked with the older one. My dad tried to convince me to apologize to her, but I didn't even understand what I would be apologizing for. His wife's pregnancy was already high risk due to many other issues. She has miscarried 3 babies in the past 2 years. I don't know anything about her medical health, but I once overheard her talking on the phone about an abnormality she had that caused her to lose her other babies. And I just fell into a really bad place mentally after that. 4 days after everything happened with my family, I tried to take my life. My dad and stepmom went out with my brothers, and I tried to overdose on Benadryl. It was the most painful experience of my life. I didn't feel anything at first, but I eventually passed out. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up I started throwing up. I was in so much pain, and could barely move. I can't remember much, but I think I passed out again. And my little brother found me passed out and covered in vomit, and my dad ended up calling 911. I ended up in the ER. I can't remember everything because it was a blur, but I had to drink activated charcoal. They ran a bunch of tests, drew my blood and gave in 4. I was hallucinating for hours, and I woke up in a different hospital. I lied to my doctors about everything because I didn't want to get in trouble, but I was still involuntarily sent to a psychiatrist hospital anyways. My dad was against it, but I was there for a little over a week. I got into a lot of trouble for attempting to take my life. My dad didn't speak to me for a week after I came home. While I was gone, my dad read all my journals where I wrote about how much I hated myself, my life and wished my sister was still alive. He also found out that I was hurting myself by reading it. He eventually made me read all the pages out loud to him, my stepmom and my pastor. And my pastor gave me a 3 hours lesson on letting go of anger in the past. They also took away my door because I lost that privilege. And my stepmom made it verbally known that she didn't want me there anymore. My dad told me that he was going to send me to a behavioral camp/teen residential program for troubled kids, since I tried to take my life. I still didn't have any of my electronics back, and they refused to leave me alone for extended periods of time. So I had to stay in the living room all day, and could only go in my room when it was time for bed. My dad made me keep my door open while I showered, so my stepmom could monitor me. I wasn't allowed to play volleyball this year as a punishment, which really sucked. I just felt so stuck and I knew that I'd be sent away to one of those awful camps. I've heard so many bad stories about them, so I took my stepmom's iPad in the middle of the night. I was able to call my best friend. I explained everything to her. She told her parents, and they agreed to help me. I packed a few bags, took a bunch of things that remind me of my sister and planned to leave 3 nights later. I was able to get my birth certificate and social security card because I told my stepmom I needed them for a job interview at our church's daycare. She surprisingly gave them to me. For 2 nights, my best friend would drive to my house at around 3 a.m. to get some of my things and my sister's old stuff. And then on the 3rd night, I finally found where my dad was keeping my phone and laptop, so I took them back. And I left with my best friend that night. I don't want to accidentally incriminate anyone, so I can't say too much about what happened the night I left or who I was with afterwards. But my dad tried to press charges on several people, but that went nowhere. He gave up on trying to get me to go home because my stepmom was happy with me gone anyways. It's been 3 months since I left. I'm happy to say that I'm safe. I haven't heard from my dad or his wife in weeks. And from what I've heard, they're not on good terms. I'm currently staying with my mom's cousin, but once I graduate high school I plan on moving to Europe to be closer to my mom. I turned 18 today. I'm happy that I no longer have to legally see my dad again. Update 2. My twin sister was killed almost 2 years ago in a car accident caused by my stepmother. My life has been a living hell since, and I've tried to find the will to keep going, but I'm so tired. I think of her every single day, and everything reminds me of her. I remind myself of her just by looking in the damn mirror. I don't want to forget about her, but it just hurts so much being constantly reminded by everything that she is gone. My sister was such a beautiful soul. I fucking hate that her last moments on earth were so horrible. Before she passed, I hadn't been away from her for more than 12 hours. I'd give anything just to see her again. I can't explain how I feel. I don't necessarily want to die, but I don't want to be here anymore. Every day is a blur, and I feel like I'm just going through all the motions. The only thing keeping me alive is my mom. She's been doing really good with staying sober, but she'd probably go back into alcoholism if I ended my life. I just don't know how long I can keep staying for her. I know how fucking selfish it is of me to even be thinking of it, but I'm in pain all the time. I just want it to stop, and nothing helps. Update 3. I didn't think there was anything left that could surprise me. I turned 18, I've been staying with my mom's cousin. I've been keeping my head down and just counting the days until graduation so I could leave. I really thought I was done with big things for a while. Then literally 3 things happened in the same week and I've been walking around feeling like my ribs are all in the wrong place. The first thing was senior night. I wasn't even going to go. I didn't play this year and the idea of standing under those stupid bright gym lights without my sister next to me made my stomach flip for a week straight. My coach kept texting me though, and she said it wasn't really optional. I showed up late on purpose and stood behind the curtain until it was time to line up, and I told myself I would just walk across, take the rose they hand to the moms, and hand it to my mom's cousin, then bolt. They had our old banner up. Last year they retired my sister's number and they hung it on the far wall next to the state trophies. I always thought it looked ridiculous, being up there like a jersey in one of those big movies, because my sister never cared about that kind of thing, but when I looked up at it, I felt my knees go weird. They taped a piece of white gaff tape on the floor where I usually stood to serve and someone wrote her name and marker on it and stuck a flower in my spot. I kept looking anywhere that wasn't that tape. When the ceremony started, the principal cleared his throat and said they wanted to take a moment for my sister. They dimmed the lights and put a slideshow on the stupid projector. I didn't even know they had those pictures, but my coach must have saved everything. It was us at our first volleyball practice, 2 idiots in knee pads that were too big, grinning with our arms around each other. It was her blowing her candles out on our 15th birthday cake and me holding the other side of the cake like a waitress. It was the 2 of us in our uniforms the week before the accident. I swear to God I almost ran. I stood there frozen and every part of my skin went hot and then freezing. I held the rose so tight the plastic stem made marks in my palm. I tried not to cry in front of everyone, but I did. A lot. I couldn't help it. The whole gym felt like it was underwater and I just kept thinking she should be here and then immediately thinking she was here. You idiot. She was here every other time and now she isn't and she won't be and none of this matters. I got through it and went out into the hallway and pressed my forehead against the cold trophy case like a crazy person because I was about to throw up. This woman came up to me in the hallway. She was wearing a navy polo with a patch over the chest and her hair was up in one of those messy buns that somehow doesn't fall down. I thought she was a parent I didn't know and she said my name and that she was an EMT. I swear my heart thumped so hard I thought it was going to break a rib. She said she'd been looking for a way to reach me for a while but didn't want to go through my dad. Her partner has a kid at my school, which is how she found out I'd be there. She told me she was on the scene the night of our accident. I actually got dizzy. I think I leaned against the case. I told her I didn't think I could do this, and she said she understood and I didn't have to talk at all. She just wanted to give me something and tell me something if I wanted to hear it. She handed me an envelope with my name written in this really careful handwriting and she said it was a letter she had written me right after and then rewritten a bunch of times. I could barely breathe. The only thing I managed to say was she scared? And the EMT put her hand on her chest and said she was brave and she wasn't alone. I didn't know I'd been carrying around that sentence in my bones until somebody answered it. She told me my sister was asking about me and she kept saying my name and asking if I was okay, and the EMT said over and over your sister is okay, we've got her, and that they were both working on her the whole time. She said she held my sister's hand and talked to her. She said by the end she wasn't in pain. For the first time since that night, my brain gave me an image that wasn't just twisted metal and silence. It was my sister's hand in another hand and someone to tell her she wasn't alone. I didn't cry. I just stood there and felt like my ribs loosened just enough to let a breath in. I took the envelope and shoved it into my backpack and promised I'd read it later. The second thing happened 2 days after that in the stupidest place. The grocery store produce section. I was standing there with my mom's cousin trying to pick out strawberries and my dad walked right up to me. My whole body locked up. He looked smaller. Or maybe I'm just taller now and the angles are different. He didn't have my brothers with him, which already made me nervous because he never goes anywhere without them. It's like his whole personality is being their dad right now. He said my name like he hadn't rehearsed it in his car for an hour. He asked me if we could talk and I said no, because I meant it, and because that was the word that came out. He kept going. He had one of those yellow legal envelopes in his hand and he pushed it toward me. He said my name again and that he was sorry. Not in the way you're supposed to say you're sorry to fix something, but in this flat, exhausted way that made my chest do that stupid milkshake thing. He said, I should have given you this a long time ago. I didn't because I didn't know how to, and because I'm a coward. He said that last part really quiet. He said my stepmom didn't want me to have it and he went along with her, and he shouldn't have. Inside the envelope was my sister's phone. It was in one of those clear plastic evidence bags, like from a show. The screen had a spider web crack across it and a little sticker said released and the date and a case number. I didn't breathe for like a full minute. I asked him why it was in his hand now and not in my hand months and months ago and he couldn't look at me. He just kept saying he was sorry and that he couldn't keep it anymore. He said he and his wife are separated now. He said it like telling me he'd mowed the lawn. I stared at him and I was suddenly so angry my teeth actually hurt. He asked me if I would please take it, because he didn't want it anywhere near his house. I wanted to throw it at his stupid head and I wanted to collapse on the floor and I wanted to press it against my heart like some kind of talisman. I took it. My hands were shaking so hard the bag made this crinkly rattling sound. He started to say something else, but my mom's cousin stepped between us and told him we were done here. My dad nodded. He looked at me one more time with this weird pain on his face that I don't remember ever seeing, and then he left with a basket of spinach and an envelope-sized hole where his spine should be. The third thing was a message from the county attorney's office. I got a letter in the mail with my name spelled wrong because of course they spelled it wrong and it said they were reopening a traffic case related to the accident because of new evidence submitted by another involved driver's insurance company. I almost threw up again but in a different way. I called the number and a woman explained it to me like I was 5. It's not some law and order situation. It's not going to be a courtroom drama. But apparently the other driver had dashcam footage that somehow wasn't included or collected correctly the first time, and now it's being reviewed again. I kept saying okay and then she asked if I wanted to submit a victim statement. I told her I didn't know and she said that was okay, I didn't have to decide right then. That night, I took my sister's phone and the EMT's letter out and put them on my bed like they were living things. I opened the letter first. It was 4 pages, all written in that careful teacher handwriting, with scratch-outs where she had changed words. She told me everything she could remember, what my sister's hair looked like when they cut it to keep it from getting in her face, what she said when she first opened her eyes, what song was playing on the radio in the truck that stopped to block the intersection so other cars wouldn't hit us, how she kept telling my sister exactly what they were doing so she wouldn't be scared. She wrote that she thought about us for months and that she was sorry it took her so long to find me and that she hoped it didn't feel like she was overstepping. She wrote, I can't make this make sense. I can only tell you your sister was brave, and she was loved, and she wasn't alone. I lay on my bed and let those sentences crawl all over my brain and settle into the places that had been too raw to touch. I slept with the letter under my pillow like a child because I wanted it close. I charged the phone. My hands actually went numb when the little battery symbol came up. It took forever to turn on. When it finally did, the lock screen was our stupid senior quote picture from the summer we took on my mom's old camera, both of us in those dumb sunglasses at the lake. I couldn't get into the phone. I didn't know if I could even try. I held it. I pressed my face against it like it was her shoulder. I know that sounds insane. I just needed the stupid cold glass against my skin. I had this spark of remembering that we used the same passcode for everything because we were idiots. I typed it in and it worked. I laughed and then I cried without any sound, like my body forgot the second part. Her notifications were still there. Half of them were those dumb game pop-ups she never turned off and a dozen were just me from that week asking where she was, or telling her I'd be there in 5. I didn't open her texts because I couldn't yet. I went to her photos because that felt easier. She had a video from that afternoon. It was literally 30 seconds of her sitting on the bleachers with her hair in a knot and her cheeks red from warm up, making a face at me and telling me to stop recording her because she looked crusty. I immediately saved it to like 6 different places even though it was already in my hand. It feels like a miracle when I press play and she moves and sighs and pushes her bangs out of her face. It feels like I stole a minute back that life tried to keep. I didn't sleep much after that. The next day I went to school and did stupid school things and tried not to drop my phone or cry in calculus because I suddenly thought about the sound of her breathing in that video. After last period I walked to the intersection. I haven't been since that night. I refused to go past it in the car. I went by myself because I didn't want anyone watching me. It's changed. They finally put one of those blinking red stop signs there and a giant white stop painted on the asphalt like they were screaming at it. There's a chalk outline of where some little kid drew a heart on the sidewalk and someone put a new little cross in the grass with 3 carnations shoved in the dirt, which aren't ours but I left them. I stood there for a long time and pressed the phone to my chest again like a cliche and I played the Bleacher video and I said out loud to the empty air, "You weren't alone." I don't know if I'm going to write a victim statement. Part of me wants to write 10 pages and staple them to the sky. Part of me never wants to see any of those names and numbers typed next to each other ever again. What I did do was go to the school and ask my coach if we could do something real in my sister's name that wasn't just our number high above the floor like we're in some museum. We sat in her office and cried and drank those gross little plastic cups of coffee from the teacher lounge and came up with an idea. There's this girl on JV who reminds me of us, not because she looks like us but because the way she bounces on her toes when she's excited is the exact same. Her family's had a rough year. I asked coach if we could use the money from the stupid expensive bake sale and the alumni game to give her a scholarship for camp this summer and some new shoes. We wrote my sister's name on the check and I almost threw up again, but this time it felt like a weird good throw up. I didn't tell the girl. Coach did. She sent me a picture later of her in the new shoes with her toes pointed like my sister used to do and I weirdly laughed like an idiot alone in the hallway. The day I picked up my cap and gown, my brother texted me from my dad's phone. He said he missed me. He said he drew me a picture of our old house and did I remember when we used to make pancake animals. I started crying again because I remembered and also because I can see his messages in my sister's old phone, baby versions of him sending us emojis like he was trying to talk emoji fluent. My dad texted after, "Please let me come to graduation." I stared at it and then put my phone face down and went and sat outside because my skin felt too tight for my body. I said yes. Not because I'm ready to forgive him for anything, but because my brothers exist and I don't want them to think love is something that gets cut off like water when the bill is late. He came. He sat way in the back with my brothers. He stayed far away from me and didn't try to hug me. I walked across the stage and the principal mispronounced my last name and I wanted to roll my eyes because of course, but when I looked up I saw my mom's cousin and 2 of my mom's cousin's cousins. We have more cousins than sense, and they were all standing and clapping like I'd cured cancer. And my dad was clapping too, and so were my brothers, and I hated him and I loved them and my head felt like a hallway with all the doors open, and I just kept walking. I got my passport in the mail 2 weeks ago. It's the worst picture I have ever taken in my life, which is probably normal. I booked my ticket. I'm leaving at the end of the month. My mom is almost a year sober. I didn't write that sentence lightly because I don't trust good things. I have a little notebook where I write down days that feel clean and I'm going to bring it on the plane and write on the stupid tray table and the lady next to me is going to be annoyed. My mom FaceTimes me every night and she shows me her kettle and the way the exit signs look where she lives and the way the sun hits her kitchen tile in the morning, and I keep putting my face way too close to the screen because I don't want to miss a single pixel of it. She cried for a long time when I told her about the EMT letter. She kept putting her hand over her mouth like she was trying to hold herself together physically, and then she said, "Thank you, whoever you are, thank you for holding my baby's hand," and I realized that so much of our anger is love that doesn't know where to go. I don't know why that thought made me feel less like I was going to burst, but it did. I don't know what's going to happen with the county, or my dad and his wife, or if she'll ever understand a single thing that comes out of my mouth. I found out from my aunt that my stepmom moved back in with her parents. My aunt heard it from somebody at church who saw her crying in the parking lot. I don't feel anything useful when I hear that. I don't have any justice fantasy left in me. It's like the piece that held revenge just burned up and floated off somewhere. I don't know if that's healing or just exhaustion. I did one more thing. I took my sister's hoodie to a tiny shop downtown and the woman there tattooed the word my sister always wrote by her name in her dumb curly handwriting, "Promise," on the inside of my arm. It's small. If I hold my arm against my chest, it sits right under my palm. I told the lady it's so I have something to hold on to when the big waves show up. I couldn't do her name. Not yet. But I can hold promise. Promise that I'll get on that plane and go sit under whatever weird gray sky my mom has and breathe. Promise that I'll eat the food my aunt keeps pushing at me even when it tastes like cardboard because my body is tired of being in panic and needs the calories. Promise that I'll call my brothers on Sundays so they don't think I disappeared like magic. Promise that when I look in the mirror and my sister looks back at me, I won't smash the glass. I'm not okay, but I'm not where I was. I opened the Notes app on my sister's phone this morning and there's a list of dumb things we were supposed to do senior year, most of which never happened. Go swim in the lake at sunset with the orange floats. Learn to make pasta from scratch. Paint the mural in the alley behind the coffee shop. Beat coach at horse. There's also a note that just says buy mom a real present, not cookies, which made me snort because I always default to cookies. I'm going to do one of those things this week. I'm going to take my mom a real present when I land. And when I get off the plane, I'm going to hug her so long people are going to have to walk around us, and I'm going to light a candle in whatever church is closest even if I don't know the words in that language, and I'm going to read that EMT's letter again. And I'm going to say my sister's name out loud where no one knows us and listen to how it sounds echoing off old walls. It's all I have. It's enough today. Update 4. I got on the plane. I wrote clean day on the dumb tiny tray table with the pen my aunt keeps in her church bag, and the woman next to me did in fact sigh every time I bumped her elbow, which felt appropriate. I put my palm over my tattoo when the plane lifted its wheels, and I said the word under my breath because my mouth needed something to do besides swallow panic. I thought the air would smell different on the other side of the ocean, but it just smelled like wet rubber and too many people in the coffee machine near customs. I kept losing my breath in small stupid pieces, when the sign switched languages, when the conveyor belt spit out my suitcase, when the automatic doors opened like a stage curtain and my mom was just there. She looked smaller and bigger at the same time. She looked like the same mouth and the same laugh lines, but with a new softness around the eyes that made me want to put my hands on her cheeks like a little kid and check if she was real. We did the thing I said we'd do and made a traffic jam in front of the big arrival sign because I didn't let go. She smelled like laundry soap and cigarette smoke that isn't fresh anymore and whatever apples smell like here. I cried into her hair in a way that should have been embarrassing and wasn't. She kept saying my name like it was a song that she'd forgotten the words to and suddenly remembered. The taxi driver shook his head and smirked and loaded our bags and then asked if we were ready, which made me want to laugh in a way that hurt my ribs. Her apartment is up 2 flights of stairs that creak like the stairs in our old house, which I thought would gut me but didn't. The kitchen is smaller than the one in my aunt's house and somehow has more drawers. There's a window over the sink with a plant that she swears is basil even though it looks like it has been dying and coming back to life for 3 straight years. She made tea in the kettle she always shows me on FaceTime, and the steam fogged the glass just enough that I could write my sister's name with my finger without anyone but me seeing it. She would have hated that. She would have told me to stop being dramatic, and then she would have done it too when I wasn't looking. My mom gave me a mug with a chip in it and told me about the woman upstairs who vacuums at 6 a.m. exactly, and the bus line that sounds like geese when it breaks, and how the cashier at the corner market calls her darling in a way that is kind and not gross. I gave her the present. It wasn't cookies. Before my flight I found a tiny jewelry shop between the dry cleaner and the pet store, and I asked the guy if he could engrave something in my mom's language because I made him write it down for me and then double checked with my aunt and then panic googled again because it felt like if I messed this up, the whole world would fall apart. It's a silver ring and on the inside it says one day at a time, which is cliche and also the only thing I can hold without the edges cutting me. My mom slid it on her finger, turned the inside toward her palm and pressed it there like she was taking its temperature, and she laughed crying at the same time and said she didn't deserve it, and then in the next breath said she would wear it until it fell off. We sat at her little table and ate toast with butter and honey, and I told her about the JV scholarship and the stupid game notifications still popping up on my sister's phone, and she told me about the meeting she goes to in the church basement that smells like boiled carrots and candles and how she always sits near the door because she never knows if she's going to stay, and then she always ends up staying. She brought me with her the first time. I sat next to a radiator that clicked each time it was deciding if it wanted to be hot or cold, and listened to people speak a language I can understand if they speak slow and I already know the story. I didn't say anything. I pressed the ring into my mom's palm when she got fidgety, and she pressed my tattoo with her thumb like it was a call button, and then afterward we went home in the rain and she made soup that tasted like my grandmother's kitchen and also like someone had forgotten something. Maybe salt, maybe a person, I don't know. We ate it anyway. We put the bowls in the sink and stood there like fools letting the water run too long because neither of us wanted to go sit down and have it be quiet. The county attorney emailed me a week after I got there with a date and a link. Time zones are a joke. I charged my laptop and took a shower and put on clean socks and made tea like I was preparing for an exam, and then sat on the floor at 2:43 a.m. with my back against my mom's couch so I would feel held by something. The hearing was not like TV. It was everyone on mute at first with names in little squares and a clerk who said the wrong month 3 times and a judge that looked like he should be reading a bedtime story. My dad was a rectangle in the bottom left, sitting in a room I didn't recognize. My stepmom had her camera off. I thought maybe she wouldn't come. Then the little circle next to her name turned green. The county lady spoke like she had written it down and practiced it. The other driver's insurance sent the dash cam. They said failure to stop resulting in a death. They said careless driving. They said no alcohol detected. They said excessive distraction like it was a thing you could hold in your hands and put on a scale. The judge asked if anyone wanted to speak. I said I would. My hands shook so bad I had to put them under my legs. I told the rectangle judge that my sister should be here. That there is not a day where there is not a version of me that is still in that car. That the thing that wakes me up at night isn't the crash but the quiet afterward before the sirens. I told him an EMT told me my sister wasn't alone. I said that line out loud and I felt my mom put her hand on my shoulder even though she was in the other room because some touches are that specific. I didn't say my stepmom's name. I said you ran a stop sign. The judge nodded like I had answered a math question and then looked at someone else. It went away from me in that way that court things do. They read a bunch of numbers, then they asked my stepmom if she understood. She said yes. Her voice sounded like metal folding. There was no big ending. He suspended her license for a long time, longer than a summer, shorter than a lifetime, and there's probation and community service and some classes she has to take where they make you watch videos and not look away. No jail. No bang of a gavel. The screen blinked and went back to my reflection at 3:38 a.m., which was not who I feel like inside. I sat on the floor until my legs went numb. The radiator clicked. Outside, the garbage truck made that beeping noise that sounds like a heart monitor. I made more tea and took a picture of the dawn from my mom's window because the sky here turns this stupid soft gray that looks like the underside of a dove and I wanted to steal something back from the night. She texted me after. My stepmom. It was one of those long texts that looks short in the preview and then opens into a paragraph that makes you feel like you're falling. She said she hopes I'm happy. She said I took everything from her. She said the judge only listened because I put on a show. She said God forgives her. She said maybe one day I will be brave enough to do the same. I stared at it without blinking until my eyes hurt. My thumb hovered over the keyboard and then I did something I didn't know I could do. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I didn't write a single sermon. I blocked the number and then lay down on the kitchen floor because it was cold and clean and I needed the universe to draw a straight line directly across the heat in my body and tell it to calm down. When I sat up, my mom was at the doorway in her robe, hair sticking up in all directions, and she didn't say anything. She just sat down next to me on the tile like we were having a picnic for ghosts. The next day my coach sent me a video of the JV girl at camp setting a ball so perfectly it made my throat do that stupid milkshake thing again. She landed and looked around for someone to high five and there was no one and then 3 girls rushed her and tackled her anyway. The picture came after, her feet in the new shoes, toes pointed, the way my sister used to point them when she was being obnoxious and adorable. I saved the video and I watched it on the tram and on the stairs and in the grocery store line and the guy behind me probably thought I was weird because I kept smiling at my phone like it had secrets. We did another thing from the list. Learn to make pasta from scratch. My mom said we would do it on a rainy day and then it rained for 3 straight days like the sky took her literally. Our rolling pin is a wine bottle with the label half peeled off. The flour got into everything. The dough stuck where it shouldn't and refused to stick where it should and I yelled at it like it was a person who had done me wrong and my mom laughed so hard she cried and then I laughed because she was laughing because sometimes your body remembers how and just does it. We made ugly noodles that tasted like every good thing I can name. I ate too fast and had to sit back in the chair and press my hand to my chest because I forgot my body isn't used to this much okayness in one bite. I put some on a plate and carried it to the sink and I don't know why I did that. The plate under the faucet, the pasta steaming and going limp under the water, and I almost cried because I could hear my sister yelling at me for wasting food and I could hear myself shrugging and saying I'm breaking the pasta curse like an idiot. Grief does this thing where it jumps out from behind normal minutes with a stupid party hat on and you laugh and you cry and you keep doing the dishes. We also went to the water. It's not our lake, it's something colder and blue that looks like someone ironed the surface in the morning and forgot to wrinkle it back at night. They have those orange buoys here too, which made something in my center go very quiet for a second. We stood on the shore and the wind bit our ears off and my mom told me not to dare get sick and I took off my shoes anyway. I walked in until my ankles disappeared and my bones screamed, then my knees, then my heart did that drum thing that says are you kidding me, and I dove under. I opened my eyes because I wanted to see what the cold looked like and it looked like nothing and everything, and my skin felt brand new. When I came up, some man 100 feet away clapped once like a slow cheer and I laughed into the wind like a lunatic. My mom had a towel that smelled like dryer sheets and she wrapped me and I stood there shaking and happy in a way I didn't think could fit in the same body. I looked at the line of orange out there and said out loud check and then I had to sit down because my knees were like spaghetti. There's this alley behind a coffee shop near my mom's place that is covered in paint. Not like vandalism, more like everyone's handprints on top of handprints and poems that are too earnest and a cat that looks like a cloud. I stood there for a long time with a cup of coffee that was too hot and my stupid heart in my mouth and finally went inside and asked the barista, who wore eyeliner so sharp it could cut paper, if I could paint something small. She nodded like I had asked for milk and pointed to a crate of brushes like it was obvious. I didn't do our faces. I can't do our faces. I did 2 pairs of laces tied together on a wire, little loop-de-loops that wave if you look long enough. Under them, tiny where no one will see it unless they crouch, I wrote the word in my sister's handwriting. Promise. The paint dried fast. I touched it anyway and came home with green on my fingertips and on the cuff of my hoodie and my mom said you're marked, which felt exactly right. My brothers call on Sundays. The older one pretends he's too cool and then shows me his missing tooth and asks if people in Europe also have the tooth fairy or if it's a different job. The little one holds the phone too close to his face and I can see up his nose and he tells me he learned to whistle in a way that is basically spitting and then he does it again because he likes the noise. Sometimes my dad is in the background making pancakes shaped like amoebas and he says hi like a question and I say hi like a period. Last call he said he started seeing a counselor from church and I said okay. He asked if he could send me a box with some of my sister's things that he found in storage, the poster from our room, a trophy with our last name spelled half wrong, the shirt she stole from me and never returned. I said yes and hung up and cried in the stairwell because it smelled like all the stairwells in every building I've ever been in and maybe I cried because of that and maybe because of the shirt. I opened the voice memos on my sister's phone because I am a glutton for punishment and wanted to hurt and be held at the same time. There were little stupid ones, 10 seconds of nothing because she'd pocket recorded something, a muffled and my name like she was calling me from the next room. There was one from the week of the accident where she sings terribly on purpose into the phone, making up a song about how I always steal her charger and she hopes I trip over my own shoelaces but not hard enough to make me break anything, just really enough to embarrass me. I listened to it on the tram with my eyes closed and my mouth open and didn't care if I looked insane. I held the cold glass to my cheek when I got off and walked down my mom's street and said her name out loud 3 times, and it didn't shatter anything. It just put me back in my body. I lit a candle in a church that looks like it grew out of the stone instead of being built by anyone. I don't know the right place to stand here, so I stood where a bunch of old women were standing and did what they did. The smell is beeswax and old wood and some incense that gets into your hair. I put the match out with a little flick the way my grandmother taught me and thought about all the hands that have flicked matches in that spot, and I felt like my skin was paper and my bones were decent. I said my sister's name and my mom's and mine. I don't know the words they say here, so I said the only ones that tasted right. Promise I'll keep going. Promise I'll keep loving you even when I hate everything. It didn't change the air. It didn't make a beam of light do anything dramatic. It just sat next to me on the pew like an extra heart. I'm not magically healed. I still wake up some nights and have to walk circles around my mom's table until the edges of the night fold back. I still sometimes open the fridge and cry because the yogurt here comes in glass jars with little foil hats and my sister would have wanted to rip them off and stack them and throw them at me. But the other morning I spilled coffee and I didn't feel like the universe was telling me a story about how I ruin everything. I wiped it up and ate toast and wrote clean day in my notebook and then put on my shoes and took my mom to a market by the river and we bought the ugliest tomatoes I've ever seen and they tasted like a song I forgot I knew. I am not okay. I am hungry. I am here. I promised, and then I promised again, and now I keep waking up and doing the next thing, and I think maybe that is what staying alive looks like for me right now.